Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Spanish Football Podcast. I'm Phil Kitromilides. I'm joined by Sid Lowe, who is looking tired, feeling tired, but sounding sparky. You're right,
Yeah.
Sid?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. It's been a particularly grueling weekend for Sid in terms of travelling up and down the country covering Spanish football. Listeners to the TSFP diary over at patreon.com/TSFP can hear more about Sid's travels, where he's been this week, and what on earth he's been doing. It's really well worth listening to as he giggles away at the ridiculous trips that he undertook. We've got lots to talk about, actually, so let's get right to it. This is what happened on Matchday 26. Friday night saw Levante beat Alaves by 2-0. We've written about this game in this week's newsletter. It was the old cliche, a game of two halves. Levante absolutely abysmal in the first half, but turning it around in the second. Saturday saw the mighty Rayo Vallecano take the lead and look really good in the first half, but then let Atletico back into it in the second. It finished 1-1. At Vallecas, the pitch just about held up there. Barcelona beat Villarreal by 4-0. Lamine Yamal's first senior hat-trick, an extraordinary performance, an inspired performance from Lamine. Barcelona beating the side who are third in the table, but really didn't look like the side third in the table at the Camp Nou. Mallorca losing 1-0 at home to Real Sociedad. They sacked their manager last Monday, Mallorca, but there wasn't any kind of interim manager bounce. Real Sociedad claiming another win. And Sid was in Oviedo to see Atletico Madrid score in the 94th minute with their only shot on target of the game. So that was even more painful than we could have imagined. Let's never talk about that again. Sunday saw Elche and Espanol draw 2-2. More about that in just a moment, not necessarily the game or the result. Valencia beat Osasuna by 1-0. Massive result for Valencia, lifting them further away from the relegation zone. There was a wild Seville derby at La Cartuja, where Sid was. Yeah, he was at Oviedo on Saturday night and then went all the way down to Sevilla for the afternoon derby. Betis were 2-0 up at half-time. It finished 2-2 against the Sevilla side they were massively superior to, but somehow contrived to not beat. And the Sunday night game saw Celta Vigo come from behind and beat Girona by 2-1. Celta absolutely flying. Monday night football, uncharacteristically, involves Real Madrid. They're hosting Getafe this evening. Now, have you thought about joining us over at patreon.com/TSFP? Patrons get, if you listen to this.
I am listening,
you get the Monday and the Friday podcast without any adverts. Plus, there's a Q&A pod and a bonus pod every week. And there's the newsletter, the TSFP Diary, which takes you behind the scenes, us covering football matches live and not direct on the ground. You've got the Discord. Join us. You can sign up from €4.75 a month. It's even cheaper if you get annual membership. The Discord is actually a really nice community where everybody who loves Spanish football comes together and discusses all sorts of different stuff. And me and Al even get involved as well. Sid knows.
Yeah, I lost the login code, so I don't really know how to deal with it. It's
we're not going to ask you. We're not going to ask you to get involved, but everyone else should. Come and join us. Patreon.com/TSFP. There are loads of things for us to talk about, so let's get straight to it. We're going to start at the Camp Nou with Barcelona beating Villarreal 4-1. This hat-trick from Lamine Yamal, just a really, really, really good hat-trick from Lamine, who looked on it from the start of the game. Now, I know you weren't watching this game live. You've had to subsequently go back and have a look at it. Sid, I was commentating it, and we said in commentary, right from the start, he looked like he was bang on it. He scored a really good first goal, an excellent second goal, and a brilliant third goal as well. He's just so good, Sid. And I mean, I don't know how to sort of further take on the conversation apart from, he's just so good. So what would you like to say about Lamine and what we're seeing from him perhaps this season?
Okay, let's pick up on a handful of things. The starting point is, I think from my point of view, obviously that second goal is absolutely brilliant. The way that he cuts inside, it looks like Moledo might get to the ball first, and it's like a little flick of his ankle, and it nudges it over Moledo's foot, and he takes a shot on and just scores a brilliant goal. Plenty of players would have gone down looking for the penalty in that first little flick over Moledo's foot, the second flick over Moledo's foot, and he doesn't, and he carries on. The performance level was genuinely just stunning, absolutely stunning. And I think one way of picking it up is to go to to Santi Comisania post-game. He said, he always seems to have brilliant games against us. And he said, and it wasn't the goals. It wasn't the goals. It was the fact that it was running at people all the time. It was everything that he made happen. Although Santi Comisania was also keen to point out how good Pedri had been. And I think he's right. When Pedri came on and basically produced half an hour of pretty close to perfection.
We'll talk about him in a second.
Okay, good. Right. And Lamine was just fantastic. All three finishes, albeit the second goal is an outlier because it's so good. But all three finishes are finishes that you can picture in your mind. Because they're all Lamine Yamal. They're all left-footed, body opening up, slight tilt of the shoulder and bent into the net with a cleanness and an assuredness that you just think there's no way he's not going to score. It's taken so well. And it's very reminiscent of a certain little number 10 that they used to have. Although I actually thought there were moments in this game, and I think we've seen this in previous games, where what he really reminds me of is Neymar. There's touches of Neymar about his game as well. The way he goes at people, the skill, the close control, and so on. I think, in a way, the most interesting part of this game, or the most new part of this game, is what he said afterwards. His statistics are brilliant this season. 18 goals, 9 assists at this stage of a season is phenomenal. His statistics over the last 6 or 7 weeks are absolutely brilliant. I think it's 8 goals in the last 9 weeks now. I think I'm right in saying that. Maybe it's 9 even in the last 9 weeks. And yet he said post-game, until about a week or so ago, I wasn't happy. I didn't feel myself. I didn't feel like I was enjoying it. There's even a line where he says something along the lines of, I wasn't being that kid who enjoys playing football. Going back to what you're supposed to always be. Now, this is really striking, I think, for a couple of reasons. The first one is, let's just pick up on the obvious thing here, which is that all season he's had problems with pubalgia. And we've been talking about how to describe this, a groin issue. I didn't realize that this is what's known in English as a sportsman's hernia. I actually looked it up today. It's ridiculous that it's taking me this long to look it up. I didn't know that. The sportsman's hernia is a groin problem, which is kind of a kind of an ongoing one that doesn't quite go away, that feels a bit relentless, that you feel like you can't break through. And he has eventually broken through it. But he made the point. He was asked, well, is this about the pubalgia? He said, it's about the pubalgia and 1,000 other things. And he
Can I tell you what I read into this?
Go on.
When he said up to about a week ago, I wasn't happy. Maybe I'm being, I don't know, mischievous, or maybe I'm remembering what I was like when I was 18. But I think this might be to do with his personal life.
Yeah.
It might be to do with someone. Maybe he's met someone. Maybe he's met a girl. Maybe he likes a girl. Maybe something like that. Because the phrase "up until a week ago"
it's so specific, isn't it? Yeah, it's like
so specific.
It's like something's coming to my life. But I
something's coming to my life. Exactly. That's what I was reading. And teenagers, we're idiots when we sort of do those kind of things when you've just met. So I don't know. That's how I read it. Because he has been scoring goals. It's not just like a week ago he was playing abysmally and now he scored this hat trick. So anyway, amateur psychologist here said we're
absolutely onto the couch. And I think he says 1,000 other things. I think there's another element to this, which for me is interesting, which is that Lamine Yamal, we've talked, and on this podcast in particular, consistently about this idea of trying not to load him with pressure. You've got this guy that goes and wins the European Championships he doesn't actually win it at 16. He just turned 17 when he wins it. Who's the youngest ever goal scorer in a Clasico, the youngest ever goal scorer in a European Championships or a World Cup, beating Pele's record, for goodness sake. A guy that seems to be breaking records all over the place, and we're loading him with an enormous amount of pressure. I'll give you a good example of this. The front page of Marca today, I don't know if you've seen it. Thiago Pitarch is looking like he might start for Real Madrid tonight.
Yes.
And the front page, and it would be his first start for the club. And the front page of Marca is baby on board. And it's absolutely right. And I'm not digging at the front page of Marca. It's absolutely right. Baby on board. Lamine Yamal is only 3 weeks older than Thiago Pitarch, and he's played 163 senior games already. And this is the magnitude of this. And I was thinking about this earlier, and admittedly I've written about this, so maybe some of the ideas that I've been thinking about as I was writing are coming back now. I was thinking about this earlier. I was thinking, Lamine Yamal has just become the youngest player to score a hat-trick in La Liga history for Barcelona, and the third youngest player ever to score a hat-trick in La Liga, behind two guys that did it in the 1930s, right?
Yeah.
And yet it's taken a long time to come. That's the absurdity of Lamine Yamal. Right? This has taken no time at all, but it's also taken a very long time. Now, all of this builds into this thing that we've been trying really hard to not load Lamine with pressure. We've been trying really hard not to do this, but it's really difficult because his level is so good, because he's so exciting. But the other thing that's been difficult about it is that he has embraced that pressure so often. He's been publicly talking about the things that he wants to do, talking about going to win the Ballon d'Or one year. At the end of the Champions League semi-final last year against Inter, he vows to be back. This is an 18-year-old kid, 17 at that point, saying, I promise we'll be there. I'm going to lead us back, taking that on for himself. We've got this kid who, yes, in truth, was cocky at times, would wind people up, would sort of be funny. There would be a sparkle in his eye. That we saw this all explode in the Clasico when he said, Real Madrid. He joked about Real Madrid and it turned into this massive shitstorm, far bigger than it really was, to be honest. But it turned into this massive shitstorm. And I think what he's seen is this guy that was embracing the pressure has I think as well started to see or started to feel that some of this pressure isn't a lot of fun. That comment he made about how I left fear behind in the park in Matador, but that fear is never going to go away completely. Do you remember his Instagram post from about a month ago, where he referenced my inner abyss, was it, or my inner turmoil or something? And then he said, I'd like to be the person everyone wants me to be. On Saturday after the game, he says, I would have loved to have scored 100 goals at 16 as everyone wants. I'd have loved it too. And so I think what we're seeing is actually him saying, I sort of recognize that the things that I was taking on head first and thinking, bring it on. Actually, you know what? Bringing it on is not a lot of fun sometimes. And I think it's amazing, really, in some ways, how well he's dealt with the pressure. You've just said it a moment ago. As teenagers, we're idiots. A lot of us, right? As teenager, he has lived his life in the glare of the public eye. Everything he's done, analysed and counter-analysed, as we're doing now. And I feel bad even doing it. And I'm really, I've taken back a little bit to the interview with Kylian Mbappe that he did with Jorge Valdano. And Valdano asked him at a time when people were saying, is Lamine getting a bit big for his boots? He's got quite a difficult sort of, what do you call entorno in English? Kind of surroundings. He's got quite a lot of noise around him. His dad is a bit of a
entourage.
I'm not sure if entourage is quite the right word. I suppose it sort of is.
It is in this context.
I suppose it is, yeah. His dad is a character. He's seen as a bit cocky. He had that party in the summer. People are wanting to take him down a peg or two. And Mbappe was asked, can you give some advice to Lamine Yamal? And I think the anticipation was that he would say, just kind of relax, take the pressure off, get on with it. And Kylian Mbappe said, I'm not going to give him any advice. Leave him alone. He's a great player. Leave him alone. And I think what we saw this weekend was possibly for the first time Lamine Yamal admitting publicly that, some of this is a bit shit sometimes.
It wasn't shit watching him play football, and he was very good at it.
He's really good at it. It's just
18 goals in all competitions this season, which is as many as he got last season. There's loads we can talk about Lamine, but we've got to move on because there's other things that we want to mention in the podcast. His third goal is just a joyful assist from Pedri, who came on and, as you said, produced about half an hour of midfield perfection. Santi Comasagna said when Pedri came on, the game was back and forth, to and fro, kind of how we wanted it. They just scored. It was 2-1. That's what we wanted. And on came Pedri, and that all ended. He got the ball and he started dictating the tempo and just led Barcelona to this win, not least with that extraordinary assist. He's just so good, Sid. And obviously this season he's missed 12 games through injury, and he only missed 3 last season. If you look at Rafinha didn't miss any games through injury last season. He missed a couple because of international duty and being rested after that. Didn't miss any games. He's missed 13 through injury. So perhaps, Pedri and Rafinha were almost ever present last season at an extremely high level. They haven't been ever present this season. Goes some way to explaining why Barcelona haven't necessarily hit the heights of last season.
I think that's true. As we mentioned in the pod last week, well, you mentioned it when I was talking about the one obvious flaw being the high line, and you kind of said, no, the number 9. And I think that's true as well. I do think there is an issue there. But I think you're absolutely right that those two players are vital for the way they play. And I think with Pedri, it's particularly interesting, or worrying, I suppose, is maybe a better way of putting it, because we had felt that the what do you call it? The preparation of Pedri physically they'd found a solution. to the constant injuries. And this maybe just puts, I don't think it says, actually, we were wrong, they didn't find a solution. I think what it says is, it just sounds a note of caution. It can still happen. There isn't an absolute guarantee that you can avoid muscular injuries. There isn't a guarantee. You certainly no guarantee that you can avoid accidental injuries, because those happen. And he's so important to them. Now, obviously, the downside of this is that he comes back, and just as he comes back, Frankie de Jong gets injured. But his level of performance is so good. And I really, what Santi Comisania said, that idea of, suddenly the game is calm. He brings calm to them. He brings a total control to them. And Villarreal couldn't find a way through. And I think that tells us something about, let's go to that obvious flaw, that thing about the high line. And we've talked a lot about, the pressure's got to be right. But it's also about taking the pressure off and having possession and moving the ball and being able to prevent the other team from getting in control of the ball. And I think Pedri is absolutely central to that. He's as good a midfielder as we've seen for quite a while.
So I made I was going to say a bold statement, but I don't think it's that bold. On Saturday night when I was doing CBS, I said, I think Pedri is going to end his career as the best Spanish footballer of all time.
Wow. Footballer, not just midfielder, footballer. So you're saying he's going to end higher than Lamine Yamal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big claim. I don't necessarily think you're wrong. Let's analyze it through the two players that probably are ahead of him at the moment. Certainly if we're talking about midfielders, not centre forwards. And I actually think if we're talking about players in any position. And those two are Messi. Sorry, those two are Messi. No, they're not. Those two are Iniesta and Xavi.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that while this is not a new thing to say, because plenty of people have said it, Pedri has parts of both of their game. And I think more, exactly. And I just think that in itself is extraordinary. That you can even sit here and say he has things from both Xavi and Iniesta, and actually he is potentially as good as both of them at both of those things. Now, I do think it's early to say that. I do think that what we need to see from him is longevity, because, of course, you can have this performance, but imagine for whatever reason a series of injuries prevent him from doing this, or imagine he's not surrounded by players who are as good, so doesn't win as much, so we don't talk about him as much. Because, of course, Xavi and Iniesta were brilliant players who won the World Cup. And you could say, so that proves it wasn't just about Messi, but they also played with Messi for a decade or more. And that makes a massive difference to how we were seen and how that team performs. Just as the way they play makes a massive difference to how Messi plays and performs. But I think that longevity and the consistency of competing at the very high level is obviously the thing that we have to wait and see whether Pedri can do. But my word, he's a brilliant player. And lovely to watch as well. It's a bit, we used to say this, me and you talked about this a fair bit. We used to say this about Modric. One of the things about Modric was he was just really nice to watch. And I think Pedri's got bits of Modric as well. Those little darting runs through the space in the midfield to try and take the pressure off, to try and make the panorama's not quite the right word, but you know what I mean? Make what's in front of him change. He's so good at that.
There is some drilling going on in my building. I'm so sorry.
Is that what that noise was? I didn't actually know what it was. I thought something had happened to your microphone or to the reception of your phone or something.
Driving me insane. Sid, what are the chances of a Barca comeback tomorrow in the Copa del Rey against Atleti? They're 4-0 down.
Well, I think it's absolutely amazing. And having talked about the pressure on Lamine Yamal and, this idea that the pressure is relentless, just kind of back off a little bit. The entire focus post-game on Saturday and yesterday was about how, well, he's so good that maybe he can turn it around. It's like, oh, yeah, no pressure, kid. Here you go. Now just go and turn around to 4-0 for us. I think it's mental, really, that we're talking about this even being a possibility. But I suppose if anyone can, it's Barcelona. Now, look, ultimately, I think it probably is a step too far because I just think logic says that. But I'm not prepared to completely... This is a ridiculous thing. Imagine how stupid this is. I'm not prepared to sit here now knowing that those Muppets will wade in on me on YouTube or on Twitter or on Facebook or on Instagram if I say, nah, no chance. I mean, of course it's nah, no chance, but it sort of isn't, is it? It sort of does feel like it's not impossible. I mean, it's completely nuts that we're in this position. And Atletico Madrid, once upon a time, Atletico Madrid, and I think this is a good time, actually, to say this is another demonstration of the fact that it's time that people ditch the cliches about Simeone and Atletico Madrid. They are just not that team that still, even now, even after many years of not being that team, too many people think they are. They're just not.
You mean the team to go and grind out a
1-0?
Yeah. We will find out what happens tomorrow.
Although they did against Oviedo, the bastards. Anyway, with that, Philip, maybe I should tell you that today's episode of TSFP is brought to you by our friends at NordVPN.
Now, you guys know we travel a lot covering Spanish football, following Spanish teams around Europe, in the Champions League.
Or going to 3 league games in a weekend, maybe going from Oviedo all the way down to Seville.
Maybe. The best way to make sure you've got access to all your content from back home is using NordVPN.
And we'll be using it this summer when we head to the US and to Mexico for the World Cup.
Whether it's keeping up with the football, TV shows or movies, NordVPN lets you access your subscriptions back home wherever you are.
And it's very easy to use, which is really important if you're incredibly tech savvy like some of us are.
Yes. It also improves your internet security, which is important if you spend a lot of time using public Wi-Fi, like at train stations and airports and hotel lobbies.
You know, those places where I spend pretty much 90% of my time.
You connect with just one click. It's one of the fastest VPNs around, and you can use up to 10 devices with one account. For more information, you need to head to nordvpn.com/TSFP.
And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and you get 4 extra months for free. So what's the link again, please, Phil?
You can find it in the show notes. It's nordvpn.com/TSFP. So it was quite a weekend for you, Sid. Some of our top tier patrons can hear all about it in the TSFP diary.
I don't know what I said, you know. By the end of it, I didn't know what I was talking about.
Okay, well, don't tell everyone. You know, it certainly didn't sound like a man on the edge talking gibberish. It definitely didn't.
Did it not? Oh, okay.
No.
It felt like it.
Obviously, Oviedo 0, Atletico Madrid 1, Betis 2, and Sevilla 2. Let's talk about the Seville derby because it was an extraordinary comeback from Sevilla. They were 2-0 down. They were being absolutely battered by Betis without being completely.
I'm glad you said that.
It was just, it wasn't like Betis had so many chances, so many occasions, so many opportunities. You could just see this team is so much better than the other team.
Yeah. And I think therein possibly lies the problem. I think there was a sense with Betis that this is easy, isn't it? Now, they'll never admit that publicly. They'll never say so. But reading between the lines on some of the things the players said yesterday post-game, and Manuel Pellegrini was saying, it's difficult to explain this. We stepped back. We took our foot off the gas. We played deep and we invited them back into the game. And I don't know why. And I think to myself, to be honest, Manuel, I think I do know why. I think it's because you knew it was done. And really and truly, I think part of the reason they knew it was done was precisely because of the caveat you just threw in there, which is that they battered Sevilla without battering them. They're 2-0 up without actually really having to do very much. So I thought they had 15 brilliant minutes where they really went at Sevilla, and Sevilla couldn't breathe and couldn't get out and couldn't find a way out from the back. They scored the first goal, which is a really, really nice finish. It's a pretty decent move, which then sort of breaks down. But in the end, it's a really nice finish from Anthony, who does this overhead kick. And they're 1-0 up, 15 minutes in. And then actually Sevilla start getting the ball a bit. Sevilla start moving the ball around, not really going anywhere, not really of any value, no real sense of any quality or any inspiration or anything very much. And then out of nowhere, Betis score an unbelievably good goal on the counter-attack. It's one of the best goals I've seen all season. It's so well worked. The whole thing is brilliant. And the finish from Fidalgo is absolutely fantastic as well. Outside of the boot, round the goalkeeper. A lovely pass to him from Abde, who played really, really well in the first half. And so they're 2-0 up at half-time. And I'm not going to say without having tried, but kind of in a position where there we go then. And I think that's part of the problem. I also think it's true that Sevilla reacted. I was looking at the performance from Osso at left back and thinking, how on earth can this guy not have started?
We did tell people in our one to watch section in the newsletter a couple of months ago now about Osso. He's so good.
What I love about him is I suppose, do you know what? Maybe it's time to get on the Fede Valverde hype train. He's a bit like an early Fede Valverde in that he seems to be absolutely everywhere. You know, he's full back up the top of the wing, in the middle of the pitch, out wide, all over the place all the time. He's really, really tireless. I think he's very, very exciting to watch. And he makes such a difference. I thought Ejuke made a bit of a difference, if only just because there was someone who was prepared to go at people. I mean, Ejuke is a bit chaotic, but he makes things happen. Akor Adams looked like a better player when those two were around him. You get a brilliant diving header from Alexis Sanchez, who in truth, I thought hadn't done very much, and then scores this great header. And then they score a really, really quite nice second, struck by Isaac Romero, the guy that can run all day and is really, really wholehearted, but isn't much of a finisher, suddenly pulls out this incredible finish. He goes running to the corner flag, takes his shirt off. They try and do that corner flag thing of putting your shirt over the corner flag and waving it. The Betis players are warming up by that corner flag, so of course they try and stop them. I think it's Mark Bartra who kind of pushes them out of the way, says, "You're not putting that shirt on there." And then it turns into a bit of a set to, and you're thinking, oh, this is the kind of thing we don't like to see in football, which we really do love to see. And it was quite exciting. And then actually, you know what, a 2-2, it could have got even more exciting because you have Akor Adams has one cleared off the line on 91 minutes. And just before that, Abde had one hit the post on, what was it, 89, 90. And the atmosphere, by the way, is fantastic. Now, we've slagged off La Cartuja loads. So I think it's only right that we say
not
in
a Betis context. I think
absolutely right.
Yeah,
absolutely right. And I think Betis going there has been very good for them. Obviously, the redevelopment, taking away the running track, has been good for it. It's still a bit of a pain in the ass to get to. But one of the things that happens actually, because it's a pain in the ass to get to, because it's not really a place with bars around it. Because basically, if you go out there across this sort of wasteland of this old theme park that's now not well, it's there, but no one goes to it. You can only really go to the stadium. So what does that do? And this is a fantastic Rincon Cultural. It turns it into a huge botellón. Everyone's there with their own booze in the sunshine, getting sozzled on the kind of concourse of the stadium. And it makes for really quite a good sort of pre-cup final style atmosphere.
65,000 inside the La Cartuja, or maybe.
Well, it's 67,446.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, 67,000. Very, very impressive. First time ever a Seville derby was played there. And massively disappointing for Betis, but a huge, huge result for Sevilla, who have ground out some results in recent weeks. They're unbeaten in 4 games for the first time in a year, their longest unbeaten run in a year. Let's see if they can keep it going as they move away from the relegation zone. All right, Sid, let's talk about what happened in Elche 2, Espanol 2. There was a dramatic last-minute or injury time equaliser from Rafa Mir, who scored a penalty. But that's not why we're talking about him and why we're talking about the game, Sid.
No, because there's a moment in the game in which he is, I was going to say talking, I suppose talking is not the right word, but talking to Omar El Hilali, who then goes to the referee and, according to the referee's report, tells the referee that Rafa Mir had said to him, "You came over on a patera." Patera is one of the small boats that are used by immigrants to cross into Europe. Of course, the referee then applies the anti-racism protocol, which means, of course, the game is paused. But the referee himself hasn't heard it, so that report goes into the federation. What happens now, of course, is that there will be some sort of investigation. It's a little bit different to, for example, the Vinicius case in the Champions League, because it is in the referee's report. Now, the referee's report is given presumption of veracity. Now, that's not quite the case that this means that this accusation is treated as true, because if the referee had heard it, it would be given presumption of veracity. But the fact that it's in the report means that now there is an obligation to act and to investigate. I think it was Radio Marca said that the explanation from Rafa Mir was that he'd been misheard, and that he'd actually said that he was going to rip off his head. So, again, it wasn't a nice thing that was said or anything. It was a confrontation, but that it didn't come with a racist connotation, according to the claim from Rafa Mir. Now, obviously, a bit like the case with Prestiani and Vinicius.
Arrancar la cabeza would be rip off your head.
Yes, arrancar la cabeza, as opposed to veniste en patera.
No,
yeah, I mean, look, no, I mean, I know, but I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's the thing, isn't it? You're in a position that's very difficult. I think what will happen now is that there will be an investigation. They will speak to both sets of players. They will, of course, speak to the referee. I'm sure they will try to speak to players around. They will listen for the audio files and the video footage and so on, and try to come to some kind of conclusion. It's only, I believe I'm right in saying that this is only the second time in a La Liga game that the anti-racism protocol has been put into place because of something said between 2 sets of players. And the other one was Juan Cala and Mukhtar Diakabi. And that game was quite a hard watch in the second half, because essentially what happened, for those that don't remember, is that obviously, again, similar situation, the referee can't send off Juan Cala because he doesn't know for sure. So Juan Cala carries on playing. Diakabi doesn't. Diakabi feels he can't carry on. And he had this really kind of horribly kind of expressive what would you call it? View of it, which is that Diakhaby is sitting in the stands. He's had to stop, and Kala hasn't. I must confess now, and apologies for this, I'm not entirely sure what happened in the end with that in terms of the punishment.
What do you mean?
Well, I can't remember if Kala got a ban or not. I think he didn't.
Oh no, nothing with Kala.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Yeah,
I wasn't 100% sure. And of course, this is one of the reasons why Diakhaby, when La Liga did a series of anti-racism, what would you call them, kind of gestures or campaigns, and in a game that Valencia played, where the two sets of players lined up by an anti-racism banner, Diakhaby stayed out of it. Essentially, he said, "Well, you're a bunch of hypocrites. You know, you didn't deal with this, and what now? You want to kind of, what would you call it? Wave the anti-racism banner."
I don't need to point this out, but I am going to say it. Omar El Hilali was born in Barcelona. You know, he didn't come on any little boat.
Oh no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
I mean,
quite apart from anything else. It's absolute bollocks.
Yeah.
Quite apart from being offensive. Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's see. But like you said, the difference is that it is reflected in the referee's match report.
Although, as I say, that is given presumption of veracity, but it's still the referee reporting it having been said, rather than the referee saying, "I know it was said." So I don't know how far that will go to, if you like, what's the word I'm looking for, kind of accelerating or facilitating the investigation.
I mean, you know, here we are again, 2026, talking about racism in Spanish football.
Yes.
It's a theme that has come up throughout the entirety of us doing this podcast. We started in 2013. We've had to come to terms with the fact that this is around. And it is around, and you know, we've spoken about it. Stuff like this, comments you hear in your daily life, in your daily existence, that you are uncomfortable with and do not like. There is a lot of ignorance everywhere in the world, and we hear it here in Spain as well. And this is, you know, deeply disheartening to even hear the notion that a player who is born and raised in Spain could be discriminated against like this, just because of how he looks and his name and where his parents are from. But there we go. Before we go, this is what happened in the Segunda División. There was a big clash at the top. It finished with Racing Santander winning 3-1 at Castellón. That means they're 4 points clear at the top of the table. Elsewhere, Depor won 3-2 at Real Sociedad B. Las Palmas won 3-0 at Cultural Leonesa. And the newly Cristiano Ronaldo owned, well, 25% anyway, Almeria drew 1-1 at Albacete. So that's what happened in the Segunda. We'll leave it there, Sydney. We're over at patreon.com/TSFP for the rest of the week. Loads of Spanish content coming up. Obviously, we've got the Copa del Rey semi-finals, the second legs, Barcelona against Atletico Madrid and Real Sociedad against Athletic Club on Wednesday. Looking forward to both of those. We'll be back on Thursday for a bonus podcast, so make sure you join us then. And if you don't want to do that, then come and join us for the preview pod on Friday. Adios, amigos.
Cheerio.